and he's the UN chief of the UN climate program. He's the top honcho, the manager of this Copenhagen gathering of ghouls. And he had a secret meeting with Obama about 10 days ago to try to develop a fallback strategy for Copenhagen, was since they could not get the treaty signed, sealed, and delivered in all of its legally binding details. And they couldn't do that because China and India said no, and it's good for us that they said no. Thank God they said no. China and India basically say, we will not let ourselves be strangled by this carbon insanity, right? We'll give you some lip service, but more than that, we won't give you. Go China, go India, that's the way to go. Because, of course, in our country, we have morally insane leadership that's not even capable of that. So there was also a big rebellion of African countries that felt that they were being shortchanged on the development aid side of this. And they're absolutely right, because the goal of this is to cause genocide among them before anybody else. And a bunch of other non-aligned countries, smaller island states, a whole catalog of different groups of countries have registered the fact that they're not happy. Now, Obama's going to go, and he's going to commit the U.S. to a 17% reduction in carbon emissions. And we have to make the point, he does not speak for us. He does not have the power to commit the United States to any such thing. That cannot be done by executive agreement. It cannot be done, for example, by Obama signing secret protocols in some back room, haggling with a bunch of Eurogarks and other monsters, right? It's just verbiage, right? It's a throwaway line among many throwaway lines that Obama reads off his teleprompter. It does not bind us. So I think the possibilities of making this thing a deadlock are there, right? They're real. And we've got to mobilize, right? You've got to make sure that the Congress hears from you, and you've just got to manifest that U.S. public opinion repudiates and rejects this entire thing. There's a special anti-American feature in all this stuff, in case people haven't noticed, which is this idea that the U.S. is the land of scientific optimism and the belief that technology and science can solve human problems, right? That seems to be what the U.S. is blamed for. And I'd say good. That is one of the main good things you have in this country still. Europe, obviously, the land of cultural pessimism, historical pessimism, the idea that, the human condition is tragic. Well, no, we don't accept that. And that, that may be stylish in certain intellectual milieu, but that's a bunch of garbage and baloney. And it's typical of countries that have, been through the mill in the way that Europe has been, and that are now subjected to this Brussels Eurocratic, Eurogarchic regime, right? They've just succumbed now to the Lisbon Treaty, even though a lot of people didn't want to do it. So don't.
Well, Webster, let me just stop you, because you just talked about the Lisbon Treaty. Do you think that any of the leaders of any of these nation states, the big ones, are going to sign the Copenhagen Treaty? Will Barack Obama do more than lip service? Will he sign onto this treaty?
I don't see how they can sign a treaty, because there will be no treaty to sign. In other words, in the sense of the final text, which is then going to be signed, and then it's going to be taken back and submitted to the parliaments or the Senate for ratification. I don't see that. I think they've all said that they don't have this. Now, maybe they're lying, but I don't think it would be in their interest to lie about this. What they're going to try to do is to get a general political set of guidelines that they all commit to. And again, we have to stress that has zero value, that Obama is a lame duck. He is a minority president now, according to most of the polls. He will become more of a minority president, and all chances are that he will lose control. He will lose his majority in the Congress, in less than a year. So it's a matter of, again, gridlock. The best thing you can hope for, where you have the Democratic Party with Obama, and then the reactionary Republicans, who are in no way any better, right? These are remember the Republicans today who tell you that they're so concerned about deficits. This is the party with Ronald Reagan. Deficits don't matter. As Dick Cheney said, Ronald Reagan proved that deficits don't matter. That's the Republican Party. The Republican Party, borrow and spend. The Democratic Party, tax and spend. Take your pick. No thanks. We're not going to take that pick. And anybody who does that is a fool and a dupe. So, gridlock, the only thing you can hope for is that the forces of evil on both sides will fight each other to a standstill, and the status quo will prevail for a while longer, because all the new proposals are qualitatively worse than what you have today, be it health care, be it this cap and trade. Cap and trade is very easy. There is no real underlying problem, so it's very easy just to say no, no, no. Health care, there really is a real underlying problem, but you have to assume that nothing can be done about it now, given the bankrupt approaches of both of the parties.
Well, I guess we'll leave you here because you do have to run. Do you think that they'll just release some kind of a pointless communique? Is that what we'll see at the end of this, kind of like we saw at the G20?
They'll try to have some kind of a political statement, which they're going to pretend is somehow binding, and then they'll continue. I think the next round of this thing is set already for Mexico City, I believe. In other words, they're going to go on with their conferences, and they do control the European Union, at least for the moment. So they'll continue, and it's important to make clear that Obama has no ability under the Constitution to commit the United States to anything in this regard. It cannot be done by executive order or executive agreement, and therefore he is way out on a limb, and make that clear to everybody.
All right, Webster, thank you so much for joining us. Webster Griffin Tarpley, you can get all his books over at INFOWARRIOR.com.